Imagine this. You've spent years building your dream. A peaceful, secluded farm, where every sunrise feels like a new beginning, far from the noise and chaos of the world. But one morning, everything changes. A message arrives from the very people meant to protect the community, the HOA. Without warning or permission, they've decided to use your private land as a parking lot for their grand event. You drive up to see for yourself, and what you find leaves you speechless. The farm, your sanctuary, has been turned into a chaotic public spectacle. Your gates are locked from the inside, and your personal haven is now flooded with SUVs, sedans, minivans, and even tents. Traffic volunteers in yellow vests wave, as if you're just another visitor. One of them, without recognizing you, instructs you to park further back. It isn't just a violation of your privacy. It's a declaration that your property, your life, means nothing to them. This isn't just about land. It's about dignity, boundaries, and the right to peace. You spent years cultivating this land, shaping it with your hands and heart. And now, without so much as a call, it's been reduced to a utility for others. This wasn't going to stand. The ringleader behind this fiasco? Loretta Haynes, the self-declared queen of the Briarwood Hollow HOA. Known for her pretentious emails and power-hungry antics, she made decisions unilaterally and enforced them with a sugary smile that barely masked her disdain for opposition. To Loretta, your land was just another resource to exploit, another box to check off on her community leadership resume. When you arrived at the scene, the sight was surreal. A banner reading Briarwood Community Festival Official Parking Lot flapped in the wind above a cheap tent. Your tranquil sanctuary had become a carnival lot. You were expected to comply, to be grateful even. You should be glad we're using your land, Loretta said, with that rehearsed condescension. She spoke like it was a favor. But this wasn't generosity. It was theft. Rather than lash out in anger, you acted with precision. You contacted Eric, your longtime groundskeeper, and initiated lockdown protocols. Reinforced locks snapped shut, perimeter alarms activated, and the entire farm was sealed from the inside. Anyone on your land was now stuck. Then, suitcase in hand, you boarded a flight to Hawaii. Not in spite, but in principle. Let them figure it out. As the hours passed, reality set in. The attendees, once cheerful and dressed for a festive outing, wilted under the midday sun. Tempers flared, children cried, elderly guests struggled to stay comfortable. Arguments broke out. Food and water ran low. Loretta tried to maintain order, but her authority dissolved with every minute. Cell service was weak. Internet signals vanished. Attempts to contact you went unanswered. Loretta left voicemails, texts, and emails. All met with silence. The embarrassment grew. Her confident image unraveled in front of the crowd she once ruled. That evening, just as dusk draped itself over the farm, a familiar figure wandered through the parked chaos. Dolly, your cow, meandered peacefully amid the noise. She was oblivious to the drama, grazing beside an Audi. Her presence was a quiet symbol of what the farm was meant to be. Calm, undisturbed, unbothered. At the same time, Loretta's influence deteriorated rapidly. Her efforts to reorganize, delegate, and direct were met with eye rolls and anger. One of the guests suggested forming a committee to take over, further undermining her. Desperation dripped from her voice as she pleaded for patience, but the crowd had turned. She was no longer a leader. She was a liability. You watched all of this unfold from a beach chair on the Big Island, sipping coffee, your laptop open to the security feed. The contrast was stark. The serenity you preserved versus the chaos born of Loretta's arrogance. It wasn't until Eric returned the next day and quietly unlocked the gates that the guests began to trickle out. They left in silence, faces tired and clothes disheveled, their cheerful festival memories reduced to a day of discomfort and disillusionment. Loretta remained behind, trying to tidy the mess with her manicured hands, but no one offered to help. Word spread quickly. Briarwood residents called for a vote. Loretta was removed from her position. The HOA issued a formal apology. But it was too late to erase what had happened. The farm had become a symbol, not of resistance, but of firm boundaries. You didn't retaliate. You didn't sue. You simply returned weeks later, stepping onto your land with the same calm you always had. Everything was intact. Peace had returned. At the edge of your property, a small wooden sign now stood. Respect is requested. Entry by permission only. And with that, life resumed. The wind sang through the trees. The cows moved gently in the pasture, and not a single soul dared cross the gate without your invitation. The lesson was clear. In a world of noise, sometimes the loudest message is silence backed by resolve. You didn't just protect a piece of land, you protected peace itself. But peace doesn't always last forever. 3 months later, an official-looking envelope arrived in your mailbox. Not a passive-aggressive HOA memo, but a certified letter from the county. Loretta, it turned out, had filed a formal complaint, accusing you of unlawful detainment, trespassing, and property misuse. She wanted damages. She wanted retribution. It was a final desperate gasp. The letter was riddled with legal jargon, thin accusations, and half-truths. Loretta claimed the attendees were held against their will and deprived of safety. You chuckled reading it. There were photos, security footage, timestamps, eyewitness accounts that told a very different story. And your lawyer, a quiet man named Frederick Mays, who lived just down the road, was more than ready. Frederick filed a counterclaim. He built the case like a stone wall. Slow, deliberate, unshakable. Trespassing, unlawful use of private land, defamation, damages to crops and livestock, emotional distress. Within weeks, the HOA board was in chaos again. Not from festival fallout, but from mounting legal fees and public scrutiny. Residents began to demand accountability. HOA meetings turned into shouting matches. Loretta stopped showing up altogether. The county quietly dismissed her complaint. Your countersuit, however, moved forward. The day in court came. You arrived in jeans and boots, the same outfit you'd wear on the farm. Loretta came dressed like a senator, all heels and pearls and drama. But no amount of makeup could disguise the cracks in her story. The judge, a no-nonsense woman named Marlene Briscoe, saw through it instantly. "Miss Haynes," she said after reviewing the files, "this is not only baseless, it's laughable. You're lucky the defendant didn't press criminal charges." When the ruling was handed down, it was swift and unforgiving. The HOA was ordered to pay restitution. Loretta was banned from holding any community leadership position for 10 years. And as a final gesture of justice, the court allowed you to post a sign at the entrance to Briarwood Hollow reading, "Private property is not a community resource. Violation of this principle may result in public embarrassment." It became an unofficial landmark. Residents took selfies with it, shared it online. And slowly, the HOA transformed. The new board was fair, respectful. Meetings were open. Votes were honest. Loretta vanished from local life. Her influence shattered. Her legacy reduced to a cautionary tale. And as for your farm, the wind still rustled through the trees. Dolly still grazed by the fence, and you still drank your morning coffee in peace, knowing that sometimes the quietest people carry the deepest resolve. You hadn't raised your voice. You'd simply stood your ground. And that was more than enough. Moral of the story. In a world full of noise, boundaries speak louder than anger. You don't always need to fight loud battles. Sometimes, silence backed by calm, unwavering resolve protects not just land, but peace itself. If you like this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share it with family and friends. Thank you.